they are forcing the Toronto Raptors to do something no one is expecting, as the Raptors have clearly been rolling as of late, winning 9 of their last 10 and dominating the Eastern Conference. So the last thing you'd expect is some moves or adjustments made by Bobby Webster to this team. However, there have been some developments out there with some top Raptors prospects that are making things very, very difficult on the front office to continue to push to the side and continue to avoid. And the Raptors right now, if we look at this roster balance, are in a position to really cash in on the absolute gold mine they have out there at that wing position. So we're going to break down the truth of what's going on out there for these Toronto Raptors guys that frankly are making life very, very tough on Bobby Webster, and what we can expect from the Toronto Raptors in the coming months leading into this year's trade deadline. So lots of stuff to really dive into out here in this video. But folks, we are so close to 40,000 subscribers. I appreciate every single one of you that's tuning into the vids. But of course, if you're part of the 53% that have not hit the subscribe button just yet, make sure you guys hit that sub button, because I don't want you to miss a single thing that's going on with this Toronto Raptors team. But what are the things that are going on with this Toronto Raptors team? Because clearly, this squad has been on an absolute roll. As I said from the jump, 9 of 10 they've won over their last stretch of games. They've been dominant in the month of November. Their only loss coming without Jakob to the Philadelphia 76ers. And the team is officially the second seed in the Eastern Conference. Take a breather. The second seed in the Eastern Conference. I was getting bagged on. I was getting roasted for predicting us to be a top 6 seed coming into the season. Now, there are still lots of games left to be played. We're only, 1.5 games up out there on the 7th seed Chicago Bulls. This is by no means, a runaway race or anything along those lines. But the Raptors have been dominant, and their schedule is only going to be easier coming up. If we take a look at their stretch. This is the Detroit Pistons schedule. The Raptors schedule, we face off against the Wizards, the Nets, the Cavs, the Pacers, the Hornets, and the Knicks, who are without OG and Jalen Brunson for the next stretch of time. So with the exception of the Cleveland Cavaliers, who, again, you can add some padding between them, and we were tied with them last night for the second seed, and you create some padding there. The Raptors could easily go on a very, very nice run and win these next stretch of games. Now, some people are saying, hey, could we even be the first seed? Well, the Detroit Pistons schedule is also fairly light going forward. A little bit tough from the Raptors, but that's going to be a tougher one to catch. But the second seed is realistic. So why the heck would Bobby Webster with the Toronto Raptors come out and make some moves? Well, we take a look at this roster, right? And you see that there are so many guys playing well, right? RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram, Scottie Barnes, Immanuel Quickley's been on the upswing and things like that. And then off the bench, you have Gradey, who's only getting 16 minutes per night so far this year. Jakob Poeltl had his best game of the season in his last one, only going out there on the court and getting 11 minutes per game. Jameson Battle, 7 minutes per game. Ochai Agbaji, a guy that some people argue could be a starter entering this year, that he's only getting out there in his run 14 minutes per night, only averaging 2.7 points per game. The Raptors have a bunch of talent already at the guard position, and some recent developments just made this whole situation even tougher in terms of decisions being made, as guys like Chucky, Hepburn out there for the Toronto Raptors 905, guys like AJ Lawson, who are both on two-way contracts with the Toronto Raptors right now, have been dominant out there in the G League and took their game to the next level out there in their last outing. As we take a look at it here in terms of the stats, in terms of what's going on, if we bring up the right thing, basically the Toronto Raptors 905 got another win against the Swarm last night. AJ Lawson in that game put up 9 of 16 shooting, 27 points, 3 rebounds, 3 steals, 4 turnovers, and knocked down 4 of 9 from the 3-point line. And then on top of it, you have Chucky Hepburn, who went 11 of 18 from the field, 30 points out there in this game, had a couple steals himself, had 8 assists. Obviously, Chucky Hepburn is just an absolute menace out there on the defensive end, 5 of 8 from the 3-point line. He looked dominant, and heck, even Elijah Martin, 7-11 from the field, 20 points in this game. Super, super efficient. One of the most elite defenders coming out of this year's NBA draft out there on the draft. Like, the Raptors right now, if we take a look, they're spoiled out there on the wings. Right, if we have these guys all called up, ahead of those guys that are just absolutely toying with the G League, making a mockery out of all those guys out there in the G League there right now, they are 3rd and 4th down on our depth chart when they're brought up to the actual NBA roster. And this has led a lot of people, especially when you look at the imbalance in this team, when you look at the lack of people you have out there in the front court, because Colin Murray-Boyles has been awesome, Sandro Mamukelashvili has been awesome. Both of those guys are more natural power forwards than they are. They can give you spot minutes at the 5 and you can be effective, but against a lot of matchups, you want another 7-footer out there. So some people are pointing to trades that the Toronto Raptors should make in order to really rebalance this roster. Now, I have been a proponent. I have been screaming it. I've been starting the movement. I do not want to trade RJ Barrett, but there's been a lot more chatter regarding this RJ Barrett talk as of late, solely based off of his latest performances. Because we take a look at his stats, right? This season, RJ's been awesome. 19 points per game, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 34% from the three-point line. Those percentages could go up. But over his last 5 games, you've seen a significant drop out there in terms of the production that RJ Barrett's been giving. Take a look at his last 5. He's averaging currently 16.4 points per game and shooting just 23% from the three-point line. Had a bounce-back game in his last one against the Sixers, for his 3. Very, very small sample size here, shooting 66% from the free throw line as well. But some people are saying, hey, maybe RJ is the odd man out. Immanuel Quickley's been playing so great as of late. And, if you trade RJ and you get some of these top tier superstar guys, maybe that makes sense. And then out there in the depth chart, you have different players that can slide up. Elijah Martin, AJ Lawson, Chucky, Hepburn, all dudes that feel like they can play NBA rotation minutes, or at least one of them can, if all of them can't. So, you could fill that role. And we talked about this. I'm not a big fan of this trade whatsoever, but this was a trade that was thrown out by CNBC after the Anthony Davis report. You can break down that whole situation. I'm not a big fan of this one, but if you do this trade, you're counting on AJ Lawson, Chucky Hepburn, and Elijah Martin being able to at least be capable NBA players. You don't need to be the next superstars in the NBA, but capable NBA players, because you're really depleting your depth out there at the wing position. So that's a move that people have thrown out there. But another one that people have talked about is this, and acquiring Daniel Gafford. And I'm seeing more and more people discuss, hey, maybe RJ Barrett should be in one of these trades for Daniel Gafford, and then you acquire some salary, you have more financial flexibility, and all of that type of stuff. And this is something that I know Raptors fans, again, everyone's big fish hunting, everyone's looking at the star names and all that. Daniel Gafford is someone that really, if you added him to the center tandem of Jakob Poeltl and DG out there in your front court, that they complement their skills almost perfectly. Daniel Gafford's a lob threat. He can block shots, be out there underneath the rim, where Jakob Poeltl's a great positional defender, a great passer in the mid-post area. They bring complementary skill sets, both at 7 foot, which we seem is super, super crucial for the squad. And let's call Murray-Boyles, Mamukelashvili really play back to their natural positions. So that is a guy that I think a lot of Raptors fans are more interested in, just given the price point and stuff. Daniel Gafford, of course, you're making that trade at the Mavericks. You take on Caleb Martin's bad contract, Dwight Powell's and stuff. But DG will be a piece. Again, I don't like this trade in the sense that I'm just such a big fan of RJ Barrett. I think he's a legitimate star. So, I'd rather go different avenues for one of these trades. Like something like this, you deplete your wing depth a little bit, but you send Ochai Agbaji to the Brooklyn Nets, attach a couple second-round picks to it, and acquire Day'Ron Sharpe. That is a deal that I'd be much more interested in. A rim-protecting big man that could block shots, that could be the lob threat, and be a 7-footer that can go out there when the Raptors need to have a 7-footer on the court. If Jakob Poeltl's dealing with some injuries or anything like that, you have some insurance at that position. That's the route I'd be more favorably going down. But regardless of all that, Chucky Hepburn right now, Chucky Hepburn and AJ Lawson, Elijah Martin, all those guys are making it known, hey, the Raptors, you already have an imbalanced roster and stuff, and you have more guys waiting in the wings that are going to be capable of playing the wing position. So we'll see what Bobby Webster ends up doing. Let me know what you guys think he should do out there in the coming weeks. Of course, most of these moves will happen close to the trade deadline when more players are available to trade. But let me know. You guys have best tune in the video again. Super, super close to 40,000 subscribers. I appreciate every single one of you. I'm signing out. Cheers.